We are going to do teammate wars. The first running of the Tired F1 pod, teammate wars. Red Bull, Max Verstappen, champion of 2023, 2022, and asterisk 2021.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. That's gonna get our people mad.
I'm just kidding. Versus Sergio Perez. So just some objective data. Last year, Max finished in the championship first. Perez finished second, and their qualifying head to head was a fairly crushing Verstappen 20, Perez 2. Who's going to win this one, Amar?
Wow. I mean, I feel like if I were a gambling man, I would want to put all my money on Checo, right? No, I'm kidding. Of course, this is I mean, I don't why are we spending time on this, man? Like this is a given. Like if there's one thing we can predict for this season, it is this, which is there's no way that Checo's beating Max. Like unless something unforeseen happens, it's not gonna happen. So it's gonna be Max hands down. Why would I think otherwise? It makes no sense.
But Perez has come out this season and said, I had lots of trouble with the 2023 car, but this one seems much more comfortable. I mean, he didn't seem to show it that much in testing, and he doesn't seem to have shown that turn of pace, particularly in FP2, where Verstappen had the legs on one lap pace, certainly. Um, what does Perez need to do to turn that around?
So I think what he needs to do, and this is going to be a tough year, right? I mean, we'll talk about what he needs to do, but the reality is that this is probably his last year there, right? Like, I mean, it is difficult to see him go past because there have been clear signs of frustration with Checo. I'm not suggesting for a second that they're all valid in any which way. There's been a lot said about him that frankly is borderline unacceptable, right? And we've gone through those iterations, but the reality is that ultimately it doesn't seem like Checo is the driver who fits the Red Bull model in this iteration of what Red Bull is trying to do, which is to really get a solid second guy to Max, right? And that's what they're trying to do. Oh, by the way, you also have Daniel Ricciardo waiting in the backgrounds, just ready to pounce on that seat, so to speak. And then who knows what happens with the whole silly season there. So with that as context, I think what Checo can do is sort of model his performance for his whoever his next team is going to be, which is to try to be right up there with Max as many times as I can, as often as he can. He's really struggled in qualifying, right? And in some ways, we're talking about Max versus Checo, but he struggled against Charles. He struggled against Carlos in many different races last year. And I think he really needs to work on that. His sort of ceiling here is being that second guy to Max and just sort of being there and seeing what happens. Let's say something goes wrong with Max's car or there's an off day by any chance, which is hard to imagine, then he's right there for the win. That's the best he can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Perez is in that Red Bull Max's number two spiral of despair that Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon found themselves in as well. That you find that you're not as fast as Max, because you can't deal with the car characteristics as well. So you keep trying to chase a setup that will get you back to that level, and you try and change your driving style to try and match what Max does. And the more you do that, the slower you get,
So you
and the
get.
worse your results get, and it just carries on and on and on. But I think that's based on a mentality that you're coming into the season hoping to beat Max
Max.
Verstappen. And I wonder if actually Perez's mentality on that, maybe it's a bit defeatist, just needs to change. That actually it's not about beating Max, it's just about uh, maximizing his own performance. And maybe that's not enough to beat Max, but it'll be enough to give him consistent good performance week on week. And as you say, it will just mean that when Max has an off day, which or let's be real, if
It's
Max's
not going to
car
happen.
breaks, if Max's car breaks, then Perez is there solidly to pick up the pieces, not performing another miraculous recovery drive. And I think it is important, um, that he does that on two fronts. Like you said, this is most likely going to be his last season at Red Bull, and he has to make sure that he sees out the entire season. Red Bull are very
Mhm.
notorious for just replacing their drivers mid-season with no regard. But he needs to see out the season and make himself appear attractive to other teams. Now he's in a strong position because if he does get dropped by Red Bull, other teams are going to want to know some of the stuff that he has learned from Red Bull as an organization, as a technical exercise. But he has to show that he has some performance. And even if he doesn't beat Max this season, he has to show that to make his career attractive to other teams. That's what I think he needs to do.
Yeah, and I would add one more thing, which is it is perhaps a foregone conclusion that Max will win the drivers' championship, but I think we can comfortably surmise that the constructors' championship is up for grabs, right? If Ferrari have managed to make that positive step forward, if McLaren have made that positive step forward, if I mean, we're going off of FP2 practice results here, but if Mercedes have made a jump, the constructors title is in play. That is very much at play. So Max, in other words, could win all the races that are out there, all 24, and yet there's a formula for for a Ferrari to be a constructors champion this year. So I think from that perspective, I think Checo needs to be very focused on making sure that he can get the best out of his car to put the team as far ahead as he possibly can.
Yep. We probably should ask the question: is there anything that Max needs to do?
Not get sick. I don't know. Not miss a flight. It's really hard. I mean, look, I still have this little bit of hope that if Ferrari, if McLaren can be at right next to him, neck and neck, right? If Leclerc can be there, I think there's an element of pressure that we have not seen be put on Max since the 21 season. And granted, that was the first year he won a championship. He's won two more since then. So it does change the psychology of the driver to a great extent. But he hasn't really been pushed for a better part of the last two seasons. So who knows what that looks like, right? I kind of leave the door open ever so slightly for something like that happening, but it's still a big leap of faith.
Yeah, I agree. I think Max's thing is to keep doing what he's doing and continue to exert the influence that he has on the team in the direction of development. Because they will keep developing their car to be as fast as it possibly can. And as long as he's the driver that can exploit that and drive development forwards, then it's going to be all him. So there you go. Max Verstappen will win the teammate war and at Red Bull, and Perez just needs to focus on his own performance and do the best he can. That sounds like your parent-teacher meeting done.